new details about the late Queen's hatred of Meghan Markle and how palace insiders view the final betrayal by her grandson, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Of course, the woman who has been across this story before anyone else is Lady Colin Campbell. We're going to be with her on this in just one moment. But first, I wanted to take you through some of these astonishing insider revelations. I mean, the Daily Beast and Tom Sykes, their European editor-at-large, put it this way. Insiders are just now unloading on Prince Harry's betrayal of Queen Elizabeth. This, of course, is as a result of those astonishing beyond the grave revelations by Lady Elizabeth Ansem, revealed by the royal biographer Sally Beadle-Smith on her Substack. But I'm delighted now, and actually before I get to some of these specific, really damning quotes from people who are close to the late Queen, Lady C, can we just set this up from a macro point of view? Isn't it wonderful? Okay, yes, it has taken 7 years, but isn't it wonderful that allies of the late Queen are finally feeling empowered enough and like the mainstream media has changed enough that they can start talking up the actual horror and disgust at the way that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle treated the late Queen in her dying months and years? I need you to do something for me right now. It is free, it is easy, it is simple. Just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's because over 50% of you watching this video haven't done that yet.
Yes, I think it's wonderful. And I knew Elizabeth Ansem slightly. I have to say she wasn't my favorite person. I didn't dislike her, but I didn't like her. And one of my former flatmates used to work with her. So, but there's no doubt that she was very properly connected. She was the Queen's first cousin once removed. She wasn't the Queen's first cousin, as the media keep on saying. That was her mother, Anne Boleyn, who became Princess George of Denmark and was known as Princess Anne of Denmark. But Eliza Ansem was a good friend of the Queen's, more so after Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother died, because until really Princess Margaret died, Princess Margaret filled that role. But her brother's wife, who was the Duke of Westminster's sister, was also a lady-in-waiting of Princess Margaret. So it was all very cozy and well-connected. And she certainly knew what was going on. And I know some of the people that Sally Beadle-Smith is now quoting. For instance, Elsa Boker, whom she calls Lady Elsa Boker. She wasn't Lady Elsa Boker. She was Lady Boker. She was the wife of a knight. And Elsa, who I'd known forever because she was half Egyptian, half Lebanese, and part Lebanese. So through the Lebanese community, we'd known each other for decades. And also she was a great friend of my stepmother-in-law, Margaret, Duchess of Argyll. And Elsa has said various things as well, which she said to me. So everything that actually Sally Beadle-Smith is saying that Elsa said is absolutely accurate. One or two of them were so hot that I didn't put them in my book, The Real Diana. But where Eliza is concerned, it was she would spill the beans to Sally Beadle-Smith. Thank God she did, because otherwise I was going to a large extent be a lone voice. Now I'm not a lone voice. And when I said certain things, people said, oh, no, Lady Colin Campbell has a blah, blah, blah. And everything I always have said actually always turns out to be true. But that doesn't stop the mainstream media from trying to denigrate what I say. But now that Sally Bedell Smith is saying it through another source, who is a cousin of the late Queen and a friend of the late Queen, it's very variable. And the Queen was absolutely, as I indicated in my book, the Queen was, and remember, when I wrote the first version of my book, the Queen was still alive.
If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address and sign up today.
And I made it absolutely clear that the Queen was outraged. I had to clean up certain things to protect the identities of people. For instance, I mentioned the Queen driving someone on the Windsor estate in the Christmas, in the run-up to the Christmas season, in the run-up to Megxit. And the Queen was vitriolic about Meghan. She thought that she was, and I can't use the words, but let me put it this way. If you like jam tarts, and if you like things about the street, and if you like, the Queen was devastatingly pejorative about Meghan as an individual and as a character. And I had to clean it up for legal reasons in my book. But the Queen saw through Meghan. The Queen was absolutely furious with Meghan. And the Queen, at that Christmas, before Meghan had actually had the unmitigated gall to say that the Queen doesn't own the word royal. And the Queen could not believe that she had given this girl, this scrubber with the most appalling reputation, that she had given her an opportunity. And she had believed that because Meghan had allowed her to believe that she wanted to join the team and work as a royal and do good as a royal. And she felt utterly betrayed that she had been manipulated the way she had by Meghan. And she also felt betrayed that Harry had been manipulated and that Harry had voluntarily jumped on the bandwagon and slit the Queen's throat.
Indeed. Lady C, how are you suggesting that the late Queen thought Meghan Markle was a bit of a tart?
Was a what?
Bit of a tart.
I don't remember how I cleaned it up in the book because I had to clean it up for legal reasons. I don't remember the right. I'd have to look at because we had to change the wording. But yes, the Queen thought that Meghan was an operator who used her attributes and had used them very successfully where Harry was concerned and where other men were concerned as well. I mean, the Queen knew that Meghan had been around the block several times. I mean, do you remember the Queen's expression during that wedding ceremony? I mean, thunder would have been more lightweight than the Queen's expression. Yeah, she thought she knew what Meghan was, and she was privately, and I need to skirt around these issues, Jan, to protect you as well, because for legal reasons, the Queen knew exactly what Meghan was, and by the time of Megxit, she had a large part of her measure, and after Megxit, she had an even larger part of her measure. And by the time the Queen died, she knew exactly what she was dealing with. She was horrified by the Oprah interview, but she was also horrified by the total callousness that both Harry and Meghan showed in saying that they believed that the royal family was allowing Prince Philip to fake his obvious demise, so to keep them from broadcasting that show. I mean, can you imagine how betrayed she felt? I mean, this was a grandson that she had loved and done. All, and by the way, also, one of the things she also objected to, I understand, is the lies that Harry and Meghan were broadcasting through their agents, that they had unlimited and perpetual access to her, and that they would be
Yes.
phoning her up and zooming her and the children and all the rest. It's all of that was absolutely, according to people the Queen told, totally untrue. They were simply abusing their relationship with her, and she knew it. Why do you think she absolutely refused to have any photographs of herself with that child, Lily, or any other photographs of herself with Archie? There are no photographs of the Queen. And she was also furious about the whole surrogacy business and all of the speculation and all of the antics surrounding that. She thought the whole thing stank to high heaven, but there was nothing, but her hands were tied, not only legally, but morally. Let's remember the Queen was the supreme governor of the Church of England. She was not only a queen, she also had a religious role to fulfill, and she was a devout Christian. But she, don't think for 1 second she didn't bitterly, and the word is bitterly, resent the way she and her position were being abused by Harry and Meghan.
Absolutely. Very, very, very powerfully put, Lady C. And I think the fact that there was never a picture of her with her so-called namesake is something that will haunt Prince Harry and Meghan Markle forever, because it just proves what these insiders were all telling you. Now, let me go through what these new courtiers and friends have told Tom Sykes in the Daily Beast. He's the European editor-at-large, very well-connected man.
Yes, well, Dan, I'm sure you know that Tom Sykes is a friend of mine.
Yes,
His
very,
father
very
used to
connected
spend
guy, isn't he?
He's very well connected. The Sykeses are one of the great aristocratic English families, and his father used to spend every weekend down here with me after he was widowed. And I know how well connected he is, and everything. And Tom is absolutely reliable and trustworthy. And everything that he is now saying, of course, is a variation of what I've been saying all along, because I have, although I don't ask him for his sources and he doesn't ask me for mine, it is possible that if they're not crossovers, there are certainly they're all from the same world. Let's put it this way: from the royal world and the aristocratic world, where people have been talking for some considerable length of time, and the Queen made her sentiments very clear to very many people. And I am delighted that it's all coming out now. But it was never going to come out before now, because notice the timing. The timing of all of this is following the Hollywood Reporter and the Vanity Fair exposés. Until certain people regarded it as safe, they were perfectly prepared to have me being a lone wolf in the wilderness with you and one or two other people saying this. but they were not prepared to back it up until they knew that the tide had turned and that Meghan and Harry were being exposed for the traitors, the treacherous, really rather cruel and nasty people that they have shown themselves to be. So let's be quite clear about why it's happening now, but it is happening, and I am delighted it's happening. And it shows that the way the poor Queen was treated was abominable, absolutely abominable. And indeed, I don't know if you remember, but I'm the person who actually made the announcement of the Queen's death.
Yes.
I did it at 4:00, and Buckingham Palace then they were supposed to do it at 6:00, and they did it at 6:32, if I remember correctly. It might have been 6:31 because of shilly-shallying with Harry. But I was approached, and then I had the dilemma, and I checked with various, shall we say, people. And there was a great concern that Meghan was going to exploit the situation and come out with some of one of her nonsensical but very damaging and destructive announcements, like, oh, poor me, what hair left I've been abandoned and left here alone because I'm a proud, confident woman of colour and star of suits, and they don't want me because I've got black blood and I'm not allowed to be at Granny's bedside, and everybody knows that I was Granny's favourite granddaughter and granddaughter-in-law. And to prevent her from doing that, it was recommended to me that I announce it. So once I had announced the Queen's death, Meghan was not going to be able to say, and look, and I've had to, and so we blocked her beautifully.
Absolutely fascinating, and what history. Now, Lady C.
But you know, Dan, may I say
please, please.
It shows to what extent the poor royal family and the royal establishment have been hemmed in by Meghan Markle's malice.
Yes.
And her resourcefulness and her imaginativeness and her total lack of scruple, that this woman will do anything to grab column inches for herself, and has done anything. Yep. You know, can you imagine the enormity of encouraging a beloved grandson to accuse his dying grandfather of faking an illness resulting in his death, so that Meghan wasn't able to lie and say that the royal family was racist and they were depriving Archie of a title because he had some black blood in him, when indeed his title was once he was declared legitimate, he had a title from the word go, which was Earl of Dumbarton. And you know, if you actually stop and think about the things Meghan Markle has said, and the lies she has told, and the lies she has got away with, and how the mainstream media just swallowed it whole because they thought, oh, well, you know, we're going to run with this, whether we accept it as fact or not. I mean, the whole thing has been a scandal, not only in terms of Meghan Markle's destructive behavior, but in terms of the remiss and negligent behavior until recently of the mainstream media.
100%. 100%. And actually, Lady C, I did want to ask you about that in regards to the Prince Andrew story, because finally we get word this week that the FBI investigation is going nowhere. This is how the mainstream media in the UK pitched it. So they're still very much in an anti-Andrew point of view. Well, I spoke to a source very close to Andrew and Sarah Ferguson at the weekend, who actually are just so angry now, Lady C, because they feel like his life has been ruined, not just by the false allegations, but because of the fact that the mainstream media continue to peddle a false narrative.
One of the biggest developments here is not simply the claims themselves, but the fact that royal insiders now appear willing to speak publicly. For years, the royal family and those close to Queen Elizabeth largely maintained a dignified silence while Harry and Meghan dominated headlines through interviews, documentaries, books, and carefully managed media appearances. But now that the late Queen is gone, that silence appears to be collapsing. According to new reporting discussed by royal commentators and insiders, people who were once reluctant to publicly criticize Harry and Meghan are now allegedly far more comfortable revealing what was happening behind the scenes. And the reason this matters is because it directly challenges the carefully crafted public image the Sussexes spent years promoting. One of the most dramatic parts of this story involves claims that Queen Elizabeth felt personally betrayed by both Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. According to the discussion surrounding these insider revelations, the Queen allegedly believed Meghan entered royal life presenting herself as someone who genuinely wanted to support the monarchy and serve the institution. But over time, palace insiders claim the Queen began realizing something very different was happening. The reports suggest she felt manipulated and deeply disappointed by the way events unfolded after Harry and Meghan left royal duties. And perhaps most painfully, insiders claim the Queen was devastated that Harry ultimately chose to publicly attack the institution and family that had supported him throughout his life. One reason this story is gaining so much traction is because the media landscape surrounding Harry and Meghan has changed dramatically. In the early years after Megxit, much of the mainstream press treated criticism of the Sussexes very cautiously. But today, there is a noticeable shift happening. Royal commentators, journalists, former palace staff, and insiders now appear far more willing to openly question the Sussex narrative and revisit controversial moments from the past. And that changing atmosphere is allowing stories and perspectives to emerge that likely would never have been publicly discussed a few years ago. For Harry and Meghan, this is becoming a major problem because it means they are increasingly losing control of the narrative. So what do you think? Were palace insiders right to finally speak publicly about what allegedly happened behind the scenes? Did Queen Elizabeth truly feel betrayed by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? And has the public narrative around the Sussexes now permanently shifted? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest royal news and commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.